don't forget to mess around when you're doing the Charleston, Charleston, first thing you do. Now when you round way back, first you grab your gal, and then you clap your hands, and you do the Eagle Rock.
It's going to be pretty busy here, you know, the way we started way early on the promoting of it and stuff like that. We've had summer parties previously, and they work out pretty good as long as the weather's okay. They work out pretty good.
The people are friendly. When they walk in the door, somebody's acknowledging them, somebody's speaking to them, they're not shunning them. And I think that makes a difference. You know, I mean, even when they come in with an attitude, before you know it, somebody's telling them a joke or introducing themselves. It's always nice to have friends come back that I've had a lot of people contact me, say, when is it I'm coming home, that live out of state. I'm really looking forward to seeing all those people. Of course, anytime that we have Bob Kissel here, it's a good time. Everybody looks forward to a good party. George puts on some good parties.
The atmosphere, the people, the bartenders, and most of all, George. Most of all, George. George and I are like this, and Jenny.
What does a neighborhood bar really mean? A neighborhood bar is about the neighborhood. That's why it's a neighborhood bar. It's about the people. And the neighborhood for my dad's bar is the city of Watertown.
We come in here during the day and have so much fun, just play music and sing, and it's a nice little place.
He loves people, and that's the coolest part. You get to see him, and you get to see him talk to the people that are around here, and everybody loves him. So you come in, you walk into the bar, and you see my Grandpa George at the end of the bar over there, sitting there buying a shot or buying something when he comes in. But most importantly, people are coming up, giving him hugs, saying, how are you? How's everything going? He knows everybody's name.
The customers that'll be here obviously have a good time, which makes it helps everybody have a good time because everybody else is too. So, and we don't have the fights, we don't have the problems that you usually get when you get a big crowd. So I am definitely looking forward to celebrating George and Ginny on that day because this is their day.
George Colesante. I was born right here in Watertown on November 25th, 1944.
My name's Virginia Colesante, and what do you want to know? I was born in Watertown, and I was born October 6, 1944. He has a lot of stories.
Yeah, I got a lot of stories about the bar. I got stories all over the place about the bar. I got stories about Dad, just me, my father and mother, my three siblings. Yeah, but when Dad opened in '33, he had people all over the place coming in the bar. I asked him a lot of questions because he was around during Prohibition, and he didn't get he got a notice, but he had kids during the war, so he didn't get drafted because he had kids. But let me see. During the war, I asked him. I said, Dad, what was it like here? You know, he said, Georgie, he says, this place started up and down the street. There was at least 40 bars between High Street, up that way, up the other way, and all the way down and around. He says, and there was VJ Day. There was so much trouble going on in the bars. The cops came out at about 11:30 at night. They started right up around the corner, shutting them down, because there was fights all over the place. Then they went up here, up that way, Mechanic Street, up that way, came down here, shut this bar down about 11:30, 12. Then they went down to the square and shut up every bar down through there. By the time they were done, they had shut down 40 bars between 11:30 and 12:30, 1 o'clock, and they shut down the whole street in here. That was on VJ Day. That's a story he told me about. That's one of them about, but it went from that many days, that many bars, to down when I came on to work for him. This was in 45. I came to work for him in '66. Yeah. There was down to about, there might be 8, maybe 10 from that corner all the way down through that was still in existence. He was selling ice cream is what he was doing, you know. Mm-hmm. And he just thought, there's an article about it in that papers I left you here. I tried to bring it back. I went over some of this stuff, but he was thinking that there was a lot of factories on this street, you know. And he says, it sounds like a good idea to open up a bar in the middle of 5 factories right on this street. And so him and his cousin opened up the bar. His cousin couldn't get his name on the liquor license because he'd been bought bootlegging across the St. Lawrence River.
From Canada.
And Dad never got caught. He was never caught bootlegging, but Ruck, who's right in that picture right up there, Ruck was a silent partner when the two of them opened, and Ruck did a lot of the bartending, and Dad did. The two of them, they didn't even have to hire anybody, but they started it, and it was a success right away. He opened up and never turned back. He actually paid for the bar from 1933 during the war years, from 42 to, and opened in 33, but he paid for it in them 4 years during the war because business was so well. He was back here because he had 2 kids and he didn't get drafted. At that time, I had my 2 sisters were born, and I was born during 44, and my brother was born in 42. The first 3 licenses was Pete Costanza next door, okay, and Dad and Fratelli's on State Street. They were the first 3 liquor licenses that came through in 1933 that were legally conserved, and Pete's license was number 1, Dad's was number 2, and Fratelli's was number 3 in Watertown, the first liquor licenses. You know, but Pete moved off of that location, so right now this is the oldest license in. I don't know about the county, but I do know about Watertown. It's the oldest existing license because he brought me in 68. He made me a partner. A couple years later, he put my name on the license in 68 and added it, but he didn't change it. And then when he passed away, I was able to take it off the license without interrupting the running of the license. You had to do it that way because if you don't add another name on the license, you have to put in for a different license. But my name was added on. It was a tough time, but to be running it because he was busy. And I used to get a lot of squabbles with my mother. Him and my mother used to fight every Sunday. And us 4 little kids were sitting around the table, you know. And all of a sudden, she'd say something to Dad. Dad would say something to her. And the next thing, the spaghetti would start flying over the table, right? And the table would all dispense, right? And that'd be the end of the Sunday dinner. And this was because it's hard to run a business like that and
Be married,
yeah. But there used to be they used to have it was very common for the 2 of them and the spaghetti dinners. And it's a funny thing because both my sisters, Georgie, that never happened, and they were both older than I was, you know. It happened. I know it happened, you know. They just put it out of their heads, you know. It's funny story about that. But it kept going on, and I can remember when I was little, we used to be sleeping on the front porch, Rip and I, and we'd see Dad's lights turn on, you know, and come down, heading down the street, South Pearl. Rip and I would shut the lights off and get under the covers, you know, and see Dad coming up the stairs, and he'd have a few drinks under his belt, you know, and he'd be getting up and come home, and Rip and I'd pretend we're both asleep so we didn't have to listen to him, you know, and in the house he'd go, you know, and we didn't have to listen to Ma either because she'd probably be quiet too, you know.
He liked to have BB gun fights. He liked to go out and party. He liked to drink.
Dad used to bring us down here every Sunday, Rip and I. We'd come down and pretend we were cleaning up the bar, you know. And we'd look all over the place and try to find money. And sometimes there's no money there, but then usually Dad would salt the bar, you know.
George and I used to come down every Sunday. We'd go through, help clean up, help my father clean the place up. But we'd get I think my father used to stash money for us to pick up. But I'm not sure of that, but we used to pick up money that people left accidentally or threw up on the bar or something, and it was fun.
And we'd be down sweeping. Rip and I would sweep up nickels and dimes off the floor, you know, and he had already thrown them there, see if we'd sweep up in them areas, you know. Dad set up the bar to get us to do the sweeping and made sure we did it. But We used to come down here when we were little, real little. I was able to do anything I
His
wanted.
mother worked nights.
They both worked. Yeah, and I was
And
gone.
she didn't know that he couldn't drive after 9 o'clock when you have a junior operator. So he used to drive all over.
I had a full license. I was driving after dark. I was driving anywhere I wanted at 16. And 17, I got a senior license. But yeah, I used to drive all over at night and everything. And she was never home until sometimes 10:30, 11 o'clock, you know. Or if she come home earlier than that, we'd say, "Ma, go on up to bed." We'd had girls in the house. Dad had a case of liquor up in the attic, right?
We used to steal vermouth from my father, and drink it, if you can believe that, because he left it up in the attic. He stored it up in the attic of our house.
It was too old to drink, and so Rip and I used to have parties every night at the house because nobody was home. Ma wasn't, Dad wasn't, right? And we were best friends when we had bottles of liquor all over the place. The house, everybody in the street would be drunk on the street. They'd be laying on the street. And we got caught with it in the house. And so we hid a couple bottles before it got confiscated. Dad found out about some of the parties. So we took a couple bottles so we wouldn't shut down the parties, and we buried them right up in the park, just about 5 minutes from my house, you know, because we lived right up next to the park. But we took it up on the path, and we buried like 5-6 bottles up in the dirt up there. We knew where it was, you know, and we had it for the rest of the summer. We had liquor for the rest of the summer after they confiscated it because they didn't get it all. But they didn't stop the parties. We still partied all summer.
Oh, it was terrible, and I could, if I ever talked to my mother like that, she would have beat me probably. But his mom, they'd say, "Mom, go to bed." And she'd pick her coffee up and her cigarettes, and she'd go up the stairs, and everybody, all the friends would come in and party at his house. And I used to think, oh my, you know, how, you know, that's not nice. But that's what they used to do. I never could do anything. I could go to what they called, what was that, junior co-ed? Yeah, and it was down on downtown, and I'd get a ride to it with a girlfriend, and they would drop us off, my stepfather, and he would pick us up, and we would go up to his mom's house, and they'd have a party, have all the friends and things up there. My mom never knew because nobody approved of him in my family.
I used to go down and court her, and her grandfather was like, he seemed like he was 90 then, you know. He was an old boy, was he mean, you know.
He was in his 80s.
He was mean, man. And I'd come in, you know, and I'd wait till I'd see him go upstairs and get out of the way, but he'd stay right there. So I'd come in and I'd knock on the door and I'd say, "Ginny around? Who are you? What's your last name?" I said, "George Colesante." "You no good." We used to call him the Arker because he'd come out and he'd start swinging, you know, and I'd say, "Well, this visit's over with," and I'd go out the front door. I sure didn't want to fight with any guy 80 years old, you know.
He used to come and play chess with my cousin Daryl,
Yeah,
who was
I
the
used
same
to play
age as
chess
me.
with her cousin
And
all the time.
once my grandfather would hear his voice, he'd say, "Is he in here?"
Oh, he chased me out of that house. We called him the Arker because he chased me out of that, and I didn't want to hang around. I got out of there real quick, you know. But he was kind of a.
I was sort of brought up in a family that was like Archie Bunker family type. My grandfather was like that, you know, and you know, that's the way it was. It was mostly adults, and then there was me and my 2 cousins that were the same age as me, but because my sister and brother were gone, they were older. There's like 6 years between me and my sister, and 13 between me and my brother. So.
Well, I know we had a fight when we were little because I was walking up to my street there, and I see her going down the street riding in the front seat in another guy's car. So that was when we were both like 13 or 14 years old, I think. So I was a little mad at her about that, you know. I knew there was something in the wind, you know, but that was when we were 13 or 14. But we got along okay. And,
We were best friends before we started kind of going together. Yeah. He'd go with my girlfriends and, you know, like that.
How old were y'all when y'all started dating? Like, this is my girlfriend.
15. Really? Yeah.
yeah, that was off the ice rink. We've known each other since we was 15 anyway.
Yeah.
Probably, I think, before that, but yeah.
We were about 12, 13. We started as friends, and then we started going together. We went all the way through high school.
As soon as they started going together, she was at the house all the time. And my mother worked 3 to 11 and was gone. So George and Ginny and them all had beer parties. And Richard and I don't know about Sue. I think she was probably there too, right?
Could have been.
Oh, yeah, I think so.
What was Watertown like when y'all were, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old?
It had a lot of factories, and they've all closed since, but it was pretty big, and the railroad was big here. We used to be tracks going down across the road out front here.
When I turned 16, Dad bought me a car. It was an old Chevy, a really old Chevy, you know. And I think he bought it right on Factory Street. And so I figured, well, this is good. But then Dad says, George, he says, you got to be able to put gas in that. And he says, I'm not going to do that. So he says, I'll find you a job. So he gets me a job. In the meantime, I was doing wrestling at Watertown High. But he gets me a job at my uncle's over at Monument Place. So I go from not doing anything to all of a sudden I'm scrubbing monuments for my living, you know. Probably 3 or 4 hours, maybe 5 hours a week. I was making maybe $10, what I made, and that's how I used to pay for the gas. But every day instead of wrestling, I had to quit wrestling in 10th grade, I think, maybe 11th. And when I quit the wrestling, I had to go to work for him on weekends. My uncle sells monuments. He's the one that came up with Dad when Dad came up to live with family members on Kazi Monuments. And my father lived just down the street with cousins down there on Mill Street. We used to go over to Canada to a dance party. You would never hear about that, you're too young, but they had a dance party over there where you went over and you danced on television, and it would be on television. And we'd drive over the Thousand Islands Bridge, and I think it was right in Kingston. She was in the band. She'd go over with the band, and I would drive over, you know, usually with friends, and we'd go to the Kingston dance party, I think it was called, and it was on television. That was back in the early 60s, I think. And we used to jitterbug and stuff like that, and there's kids right on my high school that went over to, and it was a big deal to go to Kingston, be on television, and be on the Kingston.
One time I had to go over there we used to have a marching band in school, and he gave me money to buy fireworks because in the United States it was against the law. So over there you could buy them. So I get you came over and he bought them, give them and put them in my music case, my trumpet case, put them in that, and they come on the bus and found them and took them off. He didn't talk to me for about a week.
It's the only way you could get them back because they were checking these cars. I figured this bus with a bunch of band kids in there, that's safe, you know. But that's how we got them back. You had to sneak them back across the border, you know. And even a couple times when my father used to buy them, right? And we'd come back across the border, and my mother and father were having a fight, right? She pulled up to the door and she says, points at Dad, and she says, he's got firecrackers in the back of the trunk back there. She told on him. Oh, geez, that was stuff was supposed to be us, you know, but Dad bought them for us, you know. So she told on Dad, and they pulled him out of the car, and they searched the car, and they found firecrackers. And Dad was mad. Oh, he was so mad at her over that, you know. My big plan was to get out of town because I had a lot of things going on, and I thought I'd probably do better in the Navy, and so I enlisted. I had a fast-talking guy that talked me into it. I had not much else that I could do. I got to do something, right? So I enlisted in 1962 during the Cuban Missile Crisis.
This is a special report from CBS News. Good evening, this is Walter Cronkite at CBS News headquarters in New York. Well, at its beginning, this day looked as though it might be one of armed conflict between Soviet vessels and American warships on the sea lanes leading to Cuba.
And after boot camp, Kennedy was killed.
Here is a news bulletin from the CBC television news service. President Kennedy is reported to be fighting for his life in a Dallas hospital, but reports conflict. CBS says he is dead.
And it was 63. And then when I was getting out in 65, there was, Vietnam was hot.
For it seems now more certain than ever that the bloody experience of Vietnam is to end in a stalemate.
So my discharge date, I was a kiddie cruiser for 3 years, and I was supposed to get out a day before I turned 21. That day came, we were coming across the Med, the federal government froze all active duty military, that was me. The reservists were able to get out because they were all sitting in DC, okay? And they were able to get out on their proper discharge dates. Nothing affected them. I was frozen involuntarily for another 4 months. So now I got my short timer's chain hanging down to here, and it had gone up to here. Then it got up to here, and I had about a week left, and I was supposed to be separated. Now I add on 4 more months because there was a 4-month freeze. So we come back across the Med about December, and I didn't get out until March. I was frozen involuntarily for March, so I got out in March of 66. That's when I got out. We got married in June or July 4th of the year that I got out of the Navy, and we weren't having any honeymoon because we didn't have any friggin' money. You know, Dad says you could have the not honeymoon, but have the reception right down here. You know, we had our reception down here, and we had our friends, and we took up $1. Dad had a $1 dance, free drinks. To get the free drinks, you pin $1 on the bride's dress, right? And then you get the drink free, you know, for the $1. That's what Dad did for me for when I got back, because he didn't know. I gave him 2 days' notice. I said, Dad, I'm getting married tomorrow. You know? So he said, geez, George, what are you gonna do with it? I said, we're just gonna get married. Well, why don't we have a reception for you? You know? So he said, we'll have it right down here. It's the only one I knew that would offer me a free reception, and so we had it. We collected about $200 on her dress, right? And we took the $200 and went to Lake Placid, and we got a motel for one night, and the next day we stayed in, I think, and then we came back to Watertown. We had a 2-day honeymoon.
You had to go to work.
Because I had to go to work. I had to go to work at the brake shop, and I also had to go up here. I had to go work in here. So yeah, we took 2 days away. I did other stuff. I started going I went to college for a year, business school of commerce right here in Watertown for a year also. And I think I left the brake shop. Oh, I went under the...
When you got done at business school, you went to work at a bank and lasted about 4 months and got fired.
I got fired from the bank. Yeah,
you got in a fight with someone down here and showed up as a teller with a black eye.
You know what? I wanted to get in the back part, right, and work as a what do they call it?
Bookkeeper.
Which I went to school for, you know. And so that's what I applied for with this guy, Carmen Palumbo. He hired me because I was Italian, you know. That's why he hired me, you know, but I didn't care as long as I get in there, right? And so he said, we can't put you in the bookkeeping office. He says, we'll put you on the teller line, right? So I'm working on the teller line, right? I'm down here. Some guy gives me some static about a $5 bill. He said I ripped him off for a $5 bill behind the bar. So I got relieved, and I said to him, let's go out. He says, you still think I stole money off you? Let's go out and settle this, right? He outweighed me by 200 pounds, you know. I drove him up there. Blank parking lot up there, right? I just got out of the Navy, and I figured I was pretty tough, you know. But man, I got in that goddamn in that thing with him, and I said, man, I hit him 3 times in the face, and he never even flinched, you know.
He come home with blood all over.
The next thing I see is this gorilla coming at me. You know, it's twice my size, you know, and he gets a hold of me, you know, and I can't even move. And I mean, I still remember his friggin' name, you know. And he got the best of me, and I had my face was a mess. I went in the next day for my job, you know, to Carmen. Carmen took a look at me. He says, Colesante, he says, I can't leave you on that teller line. He says, people are going to be looking at you. So he says, I said, what are you going to do with me? He said, you're going into the accounting office in there, and you work in the accounting office. I said, let's go. That's what I wanted to do in the first place. I didn't think I'd have to get beat up to do it, you know. So I wind up in the accounting office through a fist fight, and then the next day the guy come in, try to get served, and Dad wouldn't serve him, but I did do some damage to him because he had his hand all bandaged up, and he had a broken thumb, I think. Maybe I twisted his thumb, but I actually drove him to fight, and then I drove him somewhere else, you know, because I knew him, and I just felt like a fist fight. I got the worst of that one, I'll tell you that. She took one look at me, and because I came to the door. We were living on Colorado Avenue. Yeah, I just come up to the door, and
We had 3 kids then.
Yeah, I had 3 kids then. Yeah. I didn't think too much about it. I got in when I was in the Navy too. I got in a few fights because I pretty much had to when I was in the Navy.
He was happy he got in the accounting department, but they had him working overtime and just crazy, never pay, just more hours.
Yeah, he wouldn't pay me for overtime hours. Yeah, and so one day he was talking about me to one of the other girls, and he called me something lazy, something like that, you know.
No, he said, do you want to finish this work?
Yeah, after he called me a name.
Can't.
He called me a name, you know, and he shouldn't have called me a name in front of anybody. So.
You called him one.
So I called him back a name, you know, and I just sat there. He didn't fire me on the spot, but I was there for like 4 days, and he comes up behind me and says, do you want to leave this Thursday or next Thursday? I says, this Thursday will be fine, and that was the end of it. Then I run into the guy, okay, 2 years later, right, and we're at a big function, right, and he's the president of the bank, and he's sitting right behind me, right? I said, Ginny, I said, watch this. I says, the next time we have to get up and get down, I says, I'm pulling that chair right out from underneath him, and he's going to go right down on the floor in front of 200 people. I said, I want you to see this, because I said, I wanted to get back at that son of a gun for 2 years. I said, I got him. Georgie, she says, you can't do that. You can't do that. You can't do that to anybody. You can't do that whether or not the guy said something to you or whatever. I said, it's 2 years I got a chance to get even with him. This is something I got to do. George, if you do that, I'm going to get up and walk right out of here because I don't want to be next to you when you do it. So he got up and he sat down in his chair and everything was fine. And the guy died about 3 years later, so I outlived him. That's it. '69, him and I became partners, and I'd gotten through the School of Commerce. Then I went to JCC under the GI Bill for a year, and then right after that was 1969 that I went in.
He just told his dad, he says, I got kids, I got to have some kind of, no, I've been working here.
Been working here, and I need some security, and so he put my name on the liquor license in 1969. So him and I worked together until '77, and he was.
He turned the bar over to you prior to that.
He more or less, I was running it and I was getting the income from it, and he got the rent. That's what we did. That was the agreement we made. You take the money from here, I'll retire and go on, get my Social Security, and he got rents from 3 apartments over the bar, and I took the money off the bar. Yeah, that was kind of the agreement we made. And I had keep adding on hours here at the bar because people got mad at me because I caught them stealing, the ones that were, supposed to be trusted by Dad. As a matter of fact, when I first took over for Dad, when I first came to work with him, the cars were lined up all down here at 8 o'clock in the morning waiting for him to open up. And that's what that woman took away from me when I caught her stealing. She just took the whole bunch of them right down. But the thing she did was she took them all down to Franklin Street, right? And Dad was yelling at me, Georgie, you should have left her alone. I said, Dad, she was taking money from you, and I didn't like to see that. Giving free drinks. She's doing this. So she took the crew all down to Franklin Street, and every car was left all of a sudden and going down there. Dad was mad at me. I said, Dad, we'll get her back. Don't worry about it. I said, she was stealing money from me. You don't want to do that, I was sued right after I went into business with Dad. I was in there maybe 6 months, and I got a call that there was a fight in the front, and they broke the window out of the door. Come on down. So I ran right down. It was right in the middle of the World Series, and I found some guy. They're taking him out in an ambulance, right? And he had his arm sliced, and the window was all broke out of the front door. It was heavy glass. And so, the guy that actually got his arm cut was his competitor. His mother ran the Commodore restaurant. But anyway, I didn't know what the hell was going to happen until all of a sudden, Dad and I are getting sued for $250,000. Dad comes up to me and, holy Jesus, he said, George, what the hell have you done? What have you got us in for? He says, yeah, here, you've been working here for a year. I said, and I'm getting ready to get out, and I'm getting sued for $250,000. You're getting sued for $250,000. I've never been sued in my life. I said, look, don't worry about it. Let me give me some time to think here, Dad. Give me some time to think. So I got my lawyer friend from school, Mike Saunders, and I asked him if he'd represent me in this because I don't know what the hell is going on. I'm only 21 years old and being sued for $250,000. I said, Jesus, Dad's getting ready to kick me out of the job for crying out loud. So he said, George, I'll handle it. Don't worry about it. You got nothing to worry about for a while anyway. Just relax. And he took care of everything for 2 or 3 years. Then he came to me and he said, George, these people are getting on me pretty good. He says, we got to figure out what to do about this. He says, they say that they're suing you because there was no decal in the window. And he says they're suing you because they were intoxicated and they were drinking too much. And when they celebrated, they broke the window. And that's why they want $250,000. I said, Mike, let me look around. Let me think about this. I said, this is 3 years. I said, this thing's been sitting over my head. Dad's been hounding the crap out of me every time he sees me. What about? I said, I'll take care of everything, Dad. I'll take care of it. And nothing went to him. Everything went to me, And I kept wondering what the hell's going to happen. I went through the house, and I did a hard target search. And I found a piece of glass that I picked up when I came down. And the piece of glass had a decal in it, okay? And they were suing me because the glass was clear and he didn't know it was there and he bumped into it, and that's what their explanation was, I picked up the glass, still had the guy's blood all over it, a nice clear decal. I took that down to Mike, and I said, Mike, this is all I got. I said, I hope this takes care of it, because I said, I'm glad I saved it. I mean, who saves a guy's blood for 3 years? Who the hell does that? I said, I got it right here. It's a 1/2 inch thick. It's broken and it's got the decal on it. George, let me take a look and let me see what I can do. He called me about a week later and he says, the lawsuit's all over. He says they were refusing to pay the medical bills, your insurance company was, and he says they decided to pay the medical bills as long as they don't have to pay $250,000. I said, well, good. I said, I'm glad of that. And I celebrated and I was happy as hell. I didn't have to get sued. But when you're in your 20s, you get sued for $250,000, it scares the hell out of you. Well, I've had a good life. I got 4 kids. I got 4 kids I'm proud of. I don't have to give them a penny. And her and I are.
We have 8 grandsons.
We have 9.
And 1 granddaughter.
9 grandkids. We got 9 grandkids, you know.
Yeah, well, she's in Australia. Yeah, she just called me while we were just getting ready to start. That's Mike's daughter, and she graduates this year, next month, in Australia. She's with her mom.
Yeah, I've been dedicated to it, and I've been there, and I take a lot of the credit, and I give her a lot of the credit. I can't take it all, but she was a stay-at-home mom, and that's part of the reason we were able to.
I did most of the kid stuff, and he did the work and stuff. Yeah.
I brought one of my kids down one day, right? And we brought him in, and I came in and left one of them in the car.
Oh,
and
Amy,
so
when she was a baby.
I'm in the car, and I come in here, and I'm standing over the window here, and I'm looking out the window, and all of a sudden, the car is drifting, and Amy's right in front of it in the driver's seat, pulled the thing down, and it's going out into the road. I said, oh, man, I ran out of there, and I ran around. She pretty near ran over me, and I opened up the car door, and I slammed on the brake before it went in the road. It's funny watching your kid drive by with your car at 3 years old, you know. I left the car running, and I left the gear on the top. She's in there pretending she's driving, pulls down the gear, gets reverse, of all things, it heads right out into the road, you know. That's probably the worst experience. I certainly learned my lesson with that deal, you know. I was pretty careful after that. I made sure I shut the car off with little kids in there, you know.
One time when Michael was a teenager, he decided to take a pinball machine that was over here in the corner, and it didn't do anything. So Mike says to his father, can I bring that out? I'll clean it up and bring it out. So Mike sets it out in the bar area. And before, he says, yeah, I'll give you the money. You know, you can have the money you make off of it, because it wasn't
working.
Yeah. Mike it was packed with money. Mike, he says, you ain't keeping that.
Yeah, he left it in the all he did was move the location. All he did is take it out of there,
and
put it up there.
It up
Next week it brings in like $150. Mike says, money, money, money. I said, Mike, you're not keeping that money. I said, you're like 12 years old. I said, you can't have that money. I said, I'll put it in my pocket, I'll give it out to you. But I said, thanks for doing that. But I says, you're not getting $150 a week for a kid 12 years old, you know. I figured it wouldn't make any difference.
Was when it was.
All he did was take it out of there, move it, and it brought in all that friggin' money. You know, he was good at that stuff. He was good. Yep. Michael really knew what he was doing, but I had no idea a move that simple from one place to the other would start bringing in that kind of money. And
were you a sports fan as a kid?
Yeah, we all played baseball. We played Little League, and then my kids all played in it also afterwards. And I managed for pretty near 20 years. I had to manage that team, because once I started it and the kids outgrew it, I couldn't get nobody to take the place, so I had to do it. And I still get kids coming in here looking to say hi to me, because I was 20 years in Little League and Grasshopper. And you have to go from Grasshopper into the bigger leagues. And I stayed right with the kids, and I did it for 20 years. And I finally said to the guy, I said, look, I said, I can't do this anymore. I said, I can't even swing a bat. I said, you got to bail me out of this. I said, I noticed the league is in financial trouble. I said, if you can find me somebody to take over this team, I said, I'll donate $500. I said, that's just what you people are down. You got negative in the bank. I said, I'll give you $500 to bring your account out just to get me out of this, because I can't do it no more. And the next day he called me on the phone. He says, Colesante, give me the money. He said, we got somebody for you. So that was the end. That was the end of my 20 years in the baseball.
But our boys all played.
They all played in it. Yeah. Even my daughter played 1 year. Her and one of her little girlfriends played on my team for a year. Yeah.
David was a real sports.
They all did good in sports too. They all did good in baseball. I got pictures of them, and they all did good with their team. Everybody looks and shakes their head. What the hell? How did you ever get 4 kids and get them to be smart and get them to be college graduates and you running a bar all these years? They're surprised about that, you know. But we made sure that they were all secure in their home. And
David and Mike both tended bar after college, or before, while they were going to school.
Yeah, they both learned. David and Michael both learned.
So I worked for probably 2 years, bartended, and for one part of it I lived upstairs, which is not the greatest place to live, but I lived at the top. I lived at the apartment at the top of the stairs, and it was easy to come to work. You walk down the stairs and you're in the bar. But music, you hear the music, you hear all the stuff going on. And since the bar pretty much has been open since, they get open at 8 o'clock in the morning and stay open till 2. So there's a lot of traffic.
And I remember when Mike came to work here.
I worked here for, I would say, I think 3 years probably during college and stuff. One of the interesting things was the people that come in, right? So you just dig in, you ask questions, and everybody, I can learn something. That's what I love. I can learn something from everybody who walks in the door here. And that was always the first thing I learned, being a bartender.
He couldn't take 2 nickels and rub together every night. His cash register would be short. And I said, man, what the hell is going on with this kid? I said, he can't even count. I says, he's you know, and he turns out to be one of the ones that's
He took accounting in
he's
college.
accounting in school, you know, but I mean, I cashed him up every night. Nothing was ever right, you know. And David come in almost like he'd ran the business for 20 years and he took it over. I had to have a, let me see, I was something wrong with me.
He finished college. He says, I'll take over and then I'm going to California. I'll work for you and give you the time, so you walked and,
I had polymyalgia rheumatica, and he came to work for me for about 3 months. He said, Dad, I'll work for you for 3 months, but he says, I'm packing up that card and I'm going away. He said, so I could do it for 3 months. And he came down here, he took over this bar almost without any direction from me. I walked 50 pounds off, and finally the day came and I said, Ginny, I said, you know what? He hasn't said nothing to me. Maybe he's going to stay. I said, maybe this kid is going to stay here. I said, maybe he's not going to California. He could stay right here and he could keep running the bar. I said, maybe this will work. Maybe it's going to work out for us. I said, geez, you know. So I was pretty excited about getting that 3 months because it gave me just time enough to get feeling better.
And we just saved money and worked here until we ventured on to California.
Off he went, pulled up right in front of the house. Him and Debbie, the girl he's married to, him and Debbie pulled up right in the front of the car, and away they went, and down the road, you know. I'm back to work. Now, Bobby never worked in the bar, and neither did Amy, the 2 younger ones. But they both got their got a bachelor's. Amy got hers, but she went to JCC because she didn't want to go to Potsdam where Michael went. She went to JCC for 2 years. And then she went for 2 years through the Empire State College, and she was the cheapest. She was the cheapest. The other boys, 4 years every year. I had to pay for that big expenses, but I got a lot of it off because I was low income. I didn't make a lot of money off.
Most of their money that they made went to spring break. That was their big thing. Dave and Mike, spring break, yeah.
But I figured out pretty quickly when they would take my car, you know, they made a mistake and they would roll the windows up when they brought it back, you know. And I could go out in the morning at 8 o'clock and I could just step in the car and I could tell they'd been drinking, you know, with the car because they had the beer smell. I could smell it right off the bat, you know. And so I had to tell them after that, when you're out and you're driving around, make sure you drive down with a roll down window because if the cops pull you over, that's what they do. First thing they do is you roll down the window and they get the smell of the beer, they know they got you. So I said, if you're gonna drive and drink, just try to do it where you won't get caught, you know. That's what I try to teach them, you know. But they've never been caught, neither one of them have, you know, which is a good thing, you know. When I first went up there to college with Dave, he smashed his car up one night, you know. I promised all those kids, I said, if you go through 4 years of college without getting arrested for drunk driving, I says, I'll pay your student loans off. That's what I told him. I said, I'll pay them off. But I says, if you get caught 4 years drunk driving, I says, don't expect me to bail you out. Dave called me one night, about 10:30, 11 o'clock. Dad, he says, I'm in trouble. He says, I drove my car into a swamp, and I don't know what to do. I says, Dave, here's what to do. I says, lock the car up, put the windows up, go back home, and leave your phone off the hook. I says, don't let the cop, if it's in the swamp, leave it there. Just get it home, go in your house, lock your front door, and just don't answer the phone. Pull the plug on the phone. So I said, I will take care of everything. Don't worry about it. Just don't go near that car. So the next morning I drive up, and I ride by the car. I didn't know actually the police had the car, so I didn't know where it was, so I go to the police station. I says to him, I come up to get my son's car. I says he was sleepy, and he was driving home, and he fell asleep in the wheel. And I said, I come up to get it.
He'd been studying or something.
And he says, did you see that car? I haven't seen it yet. I'm looking for it. He said, it's out back. He says, go take a look at that car before you talk anymore. He said, go take a look. It's right over there. Go down about 5 cars. You'll see it backed in back there. So I go back in there, and he's got like 2 cases of empty wine coolers in the back, right? He's got a couple empty cases of empty beer in the front, right? And you can smell the beer, and the window's down, and it's been damaged, you know. But
he totaled it.
Yeah, it was pretty bad shape, pretty totaled, you know.
Went through 2 stanchions.
And it was he couldn't even get out of the car because it landed and it flew into the middle of a swamp, and there was a stanchion on either side, so he couldn't even open the doors, you know.
Somebody was looking after him that night.
So I went back to the cop, and I said, well, I just wanted to see the car, and that's all I said to him. I didn't say, you know, anything about it. But I just went to Dave, and I yelled at him. I says, you obviously were drinking for that car. But I says, it's a good thing that you didn't go near it. I says, and he said, I got a lawyer. I said, you need a lawyer? He said, no, I'll find one at the school. And he got charged him with leaving the scene of an accident. Sometimes leaving the scene of an accident is worse than drunk driving, you know, it depends. But not as far as I was concerned, you know. So he graduated from college, and he got his first bill from the student loan. So he brought the student loan over to me, and handed it to me. He said, Dad, you said if I didn't get caught for drunk driving, he said, you said you'd pay off the student loan. I said, I know, Dave. I said, I did say that, but I said, do you remember that night you called me? I said, the only reason you didn't get caught for drunk driving is because you listened to me. I says, and you know what? You didn't keep your word for me, so I'm not keeping my word with you. I said, you're paying that whole student loan off. I'm not paying it. I paid your brothers, I paid your sisters, I paid your other brothers, whatever they had, and they paid what was there. If they needed the things paid off, I paid them. I can't tell you now how much it cost me for 4 kids to go through college and get degrees. But I know one thing, Dave paid his own student loan, I'll tell you that. He learned a valuable lesson. He didn't ask me twice. He brought it to me, and I told him why I didn't pay it. I said, you lied to me. I said, you did do what I said, but I said, you were drinking in that car. And you didn't get caught because you took my advice. You got the right advice. Another one, I had to deliver up to college one time. What was it, Mike we brought up there, and I brought him in, and she cried all the way up there, just every one of them.
I was
cried
close to
all the way
kids.
up, taking them to college.
Saying goodbye, mothers do
We'd
that.
get loaded up in the car, and she'd cry all the way home. Well, this time they brought us up there, right, and we bug-a-lugged all that stuff 4 flights up. I think it was probably Mike. And we bug-a-lugged it all up, and then we headed down the stairs, right, and I'm heading out the door, and some kid up on the 4th floor dumps his beer out right on my head. as I'm walking out the door of the thing, I said, geez, I said, let's get the hell out of here. I said, I'm so sick of these kids in college. I said, I don't expect to get beer dumped on me. I know it wasn't Mike, but it was from his window up there. And man, I used to have some times with those kids. I went up one time with the two of them. They were getting evicted.
No, they weren't
David
together.
called me.
Yeah, that was a different.
David called me and said, Dad, we're getting evicted. He says, you know all about this. You've done apartments. He said, can you give me any advice? I says, yeah. I says, you really, when a landlord wants to evict you, I says, you'll be leaving there. But I says, what's the reason they're doing this? I said, I don't understand. He said, Dad, I don't know why either. I don't know why. He says, he's just mad and he's upset with this. So I said, let's go up there and take a look at that apartment just for kicks. I said, let's go up, because I think there's a fish going on
It was
here.
a house. Him and some college friends.
So we go up there, right, and we go in, and they've got this whole operation going, okay? Over in the corner is this shopping cart, okay? And it was half full of beer cans, okay? On the bottom, okay, there was a gutter that runs from inside the house out to the door, right? So that they didn't even have to empty the beer cans. You throw it in the shopping cart, they empty themselves, they drop down into the gutter, and they go out the door themselves, and then they take the shopping cart, take it out, take it over to the grocery store, turn it in for cans, and start all over again.
No, they had a whole garage full of garbage.
They had the whole garage full of garbage there. It was just bags. It was like 6 months of garbage in there. I said, I can see why you got a problem here. And I said, the best advice I can tell you is pack your bag and get the hell out. I said, that's the best advice I can give you, because I said, even a lawyer ain't going to get you out of this one. Who the hell could have thought of that? In the meantime, still past college, you know? I mean, who the hell could have come up with that? I just looked at it and stared at it. Then I found out after they left that they had parties in there with 20, 30, 40 people in there, and they were dancing in the room where the shopping cart was, and they broke the main beam that was like this big. They broke it right in half because they were all dancing in there, and they snapped that, and that was the real reason the landlord got mad at it, because they broke the main support beam for the main part of the living room. Couldn't even walk in there anymore. I scraped, I'll tell you. It wasn't as easy as it sounds to you. I'm telling you, I had to scrape to get those kids and to make sure and then I paid. Amy went really cheap. My daughter went really cheap because she went. She went to a junior college up here, and that was really cheap at the junior college. And then she finished the last 2 years under the program. What was that? What did she do under that? Oh, Empire State College. She went to Empire State College, and that was cheap, you know.
She lived at home.
And she lived at home, so she didn't have that. But Bobby ended up going 10 years. And I thought after 4, you know, hey, I said, we're getting home free here. And then he said, Dad, I'm going to go another couple of years.
He
got his master's in
Latin education.
Then he got his doctorate.
And then he went on to
so I didn't think I was ever going to get out of that, you know. But he went 10 years to college. The youngest went 10 years. But he got a good education. He's had a good job, and he's doing what he wanted to do, you know. Oh yeah, they're all making more money than I am. You know, that's what I say. I said that these kids, who could ever?
Nobody would ever want to come back.
Who could ever complain about kids when they're all making more money than you? You know, I'd never complain about them. You know.
They're great, great people. I've known Ginny and George for a long time. Ginny and George and I went to school together.
Well, and it's not just the people that are here now. It's been generations of people that come in. You know, you bring your children in, and the grandchildren come in, and I still have kids that come in that were brought in a baby carrier the first time I saw them. You know, and they're bringing their own kids in, and they're saying, you know, my grandmother came in here, or my dad worked here, and it's generation after generation. It's not a one-time stop and gone. They come back.
I remember George Sr. a lot. He was a great guy. We used to go out to lunch with him every once in a while. He used to love Limburger cheese, and it used to stink Oh, it was
I
horrible.
don't like Limburger too.
Oh, I don't remember your mother liking it, but I know that.
Yeah.
Great place to come up and have a couple beers. We used to get everything free except the drinks. I remember one night coming in here and it was late because I had been hanging out at some other bar. They came in here and there was a dude with a machete in here, just wielding a machete around. Of course, George was never here and nobody knew who I was. But I was like, it's not a good place to be. Yeah, not a good place to be.
It's just really great to see like the whole family, all the Colesantes in the United States is here right now. So it's kind of a surreal moment.
First time I tried a beer and just like when you were little, your parents would let you get a sip of one was around here. My grandpa, he's just such a loving, caring, and kind of unique character and person that he gives, I'd say, this place the life that it has for sure. His personality, how he acts, just everything about him and all the greatness about him, it just makes this bar amazing.
We're part of this bar before I was. My mom, Pauline, and my dad, Bob Donato, they were coming into the place long before, you know. So yeah, I mean, everybody knows everybody. We come in here during the day and have so much fun, just play music and sing, and it's a nice little place.
You know, I always tell people I have been shut off here. So I've been kicked out. I had too much to drink and they cut me off. Oh my God, and I talked to my dad. I call him up and he's like, I'll pay your cab home. So, you know, it's for real. Cut off, bartender's like, I can't serve you anymore. I've been thrown out of a lot of bars. I've been thrown out of my dad's bar.
George and Ginny, the relationship we have with them, it's not an employee-employer relationship. We're family. We're just, he's the best boss I've ever have and ever will work for. He doesn't treat you like an employee. He doesn't treat you like you're paid, your family. I don't know what it is that makes it so different and special other than George himself. And it's the things that he does. He comes across like he's a tough guy, but he's a pussycat. And he does things for people they don't even know he did. And it'd be the same people that'd be ditching him afterwards, but he never says a word.
It's just like a staple of the family. It's just, it's like its own legend.
Yeah. He would never think of doing anything different. Like,
yeah, it hasn't changed that much.
No.
I just appreciate them for keeping the place open, keeping it running, and he's very accommodating. I mean, whenever he comes in, he buys the bar around, no matter who's in here, and they're wonderful people. They really are, and always the first ones to stand up and do a celebration of life for somebody that might have passed or to hold a benefit.
He raised 4 kids on this place, and all of us are doing really well. All of us went to college. All of us did pretty good in our lives. So it's my dad's way of managing and my mom's way of managing, and the fact that we were raised and started in a community where, like, I have my sons running around here, and all of the kids, all the nephews and nieces are all keeping track of them, and that's just sort of like what we did and where the neighborhood was. And I think that accounts for our success and the success of all the other kids that we grew up with, you know?
Somebody gets sick and needs something, he's the first one to reach out. And to have the people in the bar reach out too. We've done benefits, we've done every year we do something for a contribution for something or somebody, if it's somebody personal that's in the bar or their family or Cancer Society, or you know what I mean?
He could have done other stuff. I mean, he didn't have to come down here and run a bar. And I tell you, there's no more difficult business, in my opinion. I saw my father go through it, and I've seen my brother go through it. There's no more difficult business than running a bar, especially this type of bar.
Since 1966, until just cornered 4 months, I had been closed 5 days in 55 years. And I'm not sure about Dad, but he used to always serve on holidays and everything. And
Holidays always open.
yeah, three days when Dad died, and 2 days during the ice storm.
He still came in and did something every single day, even if it was just to mop the floors, but he was still here every single day. 3 days when his dad died and 2 days during an ice storm that they made him close. Yeah, and even with COVID, he went into such a deep depression because he had to close and he didn't know what to do with himself. He'd been doing this for 50-some years every day.
So we're going to put out an executive order today. New York State on pause. Policies that assure uniform safety for everyone.
Closed because of Governor Cuomo. That's what I wrote in the thing there, you know. But somebody missed out because they had an opportunity to do a big political thing and probably do me a lot of damage. And I was glad they didn't.
Well, they were closed. Mike and Dave, and David's oldest boy, drove up Mike's camper and came up and drank. Remember, they
parked in the driveway.
They took all of the booze because the bar was closed, so they took all the beer, and they said, well, we're going to drink up the beer. Well, you can't throw it away instead of throwing it away, and they were here
They drank up pretty near, I don't know, a lot of beer in about 4 days, right? And nobody was in here.
Yeah,
they played the jukebox. They had a friggin' ball. And
played pool.
I said, I expect you guys to pay for this beer. I said, I expect you to pay for it and you know, not write it down, but I said, use the cash register. You can play the pool table, play the jukebox, and you can bring your friends down, but make sure the doors are closed, make sure that everybody can't see. So I came in the next morning, and I found like 3 cases of beer in the thing, empty cans. And I went in the cash register, and there was $1.25 in there. I said, Mike, it ain't hard for me to do the math here. I said, you guys ain't paying for them beers. I said, I hate to charge you with this, but I said, you owe me about 40, 50, 60 bucks. I said, not $1.25. Well, Dad, I said, if you want to start the paying, then you look tomorrow and see what's in there, you know. So I go in the next night, and it was like $1.50, you know. Yeah, they had a pretty good run here while they was here during the quarter. We all did pretty well for themselves.
His wife is magnificent. I think the world of Jenny.
We learned as bartenders through the years that she's going to have the last say. George is the one that sets all the rules. But if she wants something done, it gets done. And that's the way it should be. They're not boastful people. They're very down home. He is a person that will give anybody a chance. And it usually works out for him. He gives people a chance that nobody else will.
They love us just as much as we love them.
No, I can't say nothing but good things about George.
It's not just George and Ginny, it's the entire family. All of his children, his grandchildren. It's got to be the Colesante's gene because they're just all so loving and comfortable with people, and you know, they bring you into their fold. It's not just, like I said, this isn't a club, it's a family.
Thank you, Dad, for everything you've done for me and for this place and for this community.
George, congratulations on 90 years in this business, and you're a credit to the Colesante name, and I appreciate all you've done.
Congratulations, George and Ginny.
Congratulations, Dad.
Congratulations, Uncle George.
Congratulations, George and Jenny, who does a little cleaning around here and helps out.
Congratulations, Pops. 90 years. Love ya.
Grandpa, it's incredible, but 90 years. And he still comes on at 8 a.m. every day to open it up, and he's so dedicated to it. It's incredible, and it's so admirable.
So, the only thing I can say is I have been blessed to be raised by 2 of the greatest people that I've ever met. And that's all I can say. 90th anniversary for the bar or not, I'm the person I am today because of what you've contributed to my life.
Congratulations, George. You've done a great job, and you kept the place going. You kept Dad's beautiful business that he loved going.
Grandma Jenny, Grandpa George, love ya. We love ya. Yeah. You guys are our best friends. We love ya. You guys are our best friends. So we look forward to everything you guys do for us. There's nothing more in the world that I'd rather be than right here with you guys today and this weekend. There's so much you guys have given us, and it means the world. So, love you.
Let me see, what was the track of thought I had here?
3, 2, 1.
Congratulations, George and Ginny.
I was gonna say happy.
No, come on through,
Congratulations, Uncle.
And we're the sober ones.
Yeah.
She's going to remember better than.
She says she does, yeah.
I do.
I saw Uncle walk out and his eyes are a little watery. I'm like, how was the interview? He's like, yeah, it went fantastic.
Well, I'm telling the truth.
Yes,
I do that.
Either that or you got Mike. You got him snowed over.
No, he's not snowed over. He lived through some of that, but I tell it all too. I tell it all.
Thank you.
And then she says, I can't find it. And then she goes,
They got good pizza around town. Well, I'm glad they picked you guys. I'm glad we were able to get together with this. I'll go out of my way if those kids, if it'll give them something to watch. Hopefully we can all watch it.